Hey guys, welcome to Happy Homelands. It is December 11th. This is Happy Homelands number 2, and we brought Alicia back. We brought Alicia back. I'm it. I'm it. It's not like I'm Tim Pool that has the whole production team. But Alicia, it's good to see you. How you been doing?
Good to see you too. I'm doing great. I'm so excited for Christmas.
Oh, are you? I was just going to ask you that. Have you got all your? We were talking before the show, and Alicia, she's got 4 little kids, so it's got to be exciting for them. At least the ones that are old enough to understand. How old is your oldest?
She just turned 5, and then after her, I have a 3-year-old, and then after that, I have an 18-month-old, and after that, I have a 4-month-old. So,
Well, you've been busy the past 5 years, that's for sure.
yes, I have. But the oldest two are just like so excited. And like one of the greatest parts I think about being a parent is I distinctly remember this time growing up where like the magic of Christmas kind of like just disappeared. Like you just didn't look forward to it as much, and it was just like like yay Christmas, but the magic was gone. And
Yeah,
now that I have kids, it's back. Like
yeah.
you get to play Santa, and you get to just see their little faces light up, and they get so excited. Like turning on the tree is an event every morning. Um, it's so special.
Yeah, I've always loved this time of year, and even though I'm old, I still love it. And I remember as a kid in school, marking the days off towards Christmas and Christmas break, and I just loved it. And back in the day, we didn't have the internet, so we had like the Sears toy catalog, and I would circle the toys I wanted. So a lot of great memories about Christmas. And then after Christmas is New Year's, and then it kind of sucks. I'm not a big fan of January. It's just cold and dreary.
Yeah.
But guys, thank you for being here. And we're going to go over some news items today, but we keep this pretty informal. And if you have questions, show us some love. Show Alicia some love. I'd love to get some super chats and rants and power chats below right here. And we'll answer your questions on the show. And so we should have a good time with that. So, and there's also Stream Elements is a link below. You can, if you have a question, you can send a something in, and we will answer it. All right. Well, I guess the big story was kind of tied to you, Alicia. Is really weird. The other day, Alicia sent me a DM, and it turns out Luigi, the suspected shooter, actually retweeted or reposted one of your Twitter or X post. How'd you find out about that? That had to be a weird feeling.
It was so weird. I started like I had one of my posts was getting like it was getting fairly popular, but then every few comments in the notifications, people were tagging me in one of my like really old posts and like, did you know Luigi reposted you? And in my head, I'm like, the Mario character? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
who's Luigi? Why is he reposting me? Why do people care? And so like I looked it up, and I was also receiving like lots of DMs from my followers, like Luigi reposted you, and I'm like, and so I asked like one of the ones that I chat with regularly. I was like, who is this? And like the United Healthcare CEO assassin. I'm like, what? And like my stomach, like it dropped. Like I'm not gonna lie, like that was my first initial reaction. Is just
well,
like,
yeah, because you got to know. Oh my God, is the FBI going to show up or something on my
exactly where
doorstep?
my mind was going. I was like, the FBI is now monitoring my phone. Like I wrote this guy's manifesto. Like, oh, like they're gonna, like they think whatever. I don't know. And so I was just spiraling, and then I read what he reposted, and like it still didn't help because what I posted about was essentially the hero's journey. And a lot of men at the time when I posted it back in April really resonated with it because that's who men are. Like I love men. I know, good men. Like I resonate with their hearts, and I can see into that. And so that was what the post was about. And apparently Luigi also resonated with it. And so it was really eerie because you have that like 7 degrees of connection or whatever.
Yeah.
And then that was just like the gap just closed right there. And so it was really eerie.
Yeah, that had to be. And I don't think we've talked too much. What's your whole opinion about this so far? We got kind of a couple of different camps, and I'm not really in either camp. I see, and I can I'll explain my position, but there's the people that are saying that this was a good thing, and others. We'll get back here. Alicia had to step away for a second, and I'm going to bring up her. If you guys haven't seen this, I'm going to bring this up her. Oh, there you are.
Yeah. The baby monitor was on, and then children are going to bed right now. So.
Oh, that's okay. No worries. So yeah, what's your in general position of this? I mean, there seems to be two camps. The pro Luigi camp, the anti Luigi camp. Mm-hmm. Is he a folk hero? Is he a criminal? Yeah. What's your overall take on that so far?
So I would say I'm like really in neither camp.
That's the way I am, yeah.
Yeah, like, can I understand the heartache that and the devastation that it would cause to be cheated by the healthcare system, like as it does? Yes, and can I understand the desire and the desperation you would feel, like understanding that you will probably never see justice? Absolutely. Insurance is a real issue in our country, and I think it's a real big reason why our healthcare sucks in some degree. Like people from all over the world come for our healthcare, but the system of like how it's the payments and all that, it's really jacked up.
Well, it's really good healthcare if you have money. And that's where I see the divide, because when this first happened, everyone was assuming, oh, I bet he's anti-fall, leftist. And I'm like, I don't really know. And then when it came out and then I posted, well, he's not a leftist. Obviously, he retweeted you, but he was he read the Unabomber's manifesto, and he's there's and I don't even know the designation between left and right anymore. It's almost a class thing. It seems like that the people that are pretty well off or have a lot of money, they're kind of fine with the status quo, whether they're on the right or the left. But normal people, at least like myself, healthcare, I've detailed a lot about it. I have no idea. When I go in for a procedure, they just send me random bills. Sometimes insurance covers it, sometimes they don't. Who knows? It's just a weird situation, and it's expensive. So I don't really know if it really fits into the right or left paradigm. And it used to be always on the right is like, oh, what are you, some communist? You want some socialized healthcare? And we stand by the CEOs and the big corporations. I'm like, well, have you forgot that these are the same big corporations that have censored you, that are promoting sodomy 24/7, that are debanking people? It's a weird twist that has happened, where a lot of the left now supports these big corporations and the three-letter agencies like the CIA, FBI. When I was younger, the left was all opposed to that. So I think we're in a new type of thing. It's almost a class thing, that people that actually have to pay for healthcare get really angry about this. And I really get angry too when, if you're real rich, everything is, you just pay for it. But if you're like an illegal alien that needs a sex change operation, oh, they're going to pay for that too. And that pisses me off.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's why I feel like I'm like not in either camp. Like I understand the corruption. Like, yeah, there's a lot of corruption. I'm against corruption. But at the same time, I feel like the murder was immoral.
Yes, of course. Yes. Yeah.
So, and I would argue like there are like moral murders. But this was not one of them.
Right.
And so, yeah, I'm really not on either side.
Yeah, as I said, if I was on the jury and if he was guilty, I would convict him and he should spend the rest of his life in prison. I have no trouble with that. But at the same time, when this first happened, my thought was like when a gangster should be killed in New York City. That happened years ago. I mean, you don't want to see that happen, but are you really that sad? And I know this United Healthcare, they had a reputation. They denied more claims by far than any other company. And they were proud. They implemented an AI tool that like rejected 90% of the claims. And I guess that's good from if you're a shareholder point of view, that increases your profits, but it does cause a lot of problems with people. And so that is the issue. Hey, we got a super chat. Thank you, Bobby Tate. Bobby Tate. $10 euro. Apparently, the FBI offered $50,000 to find the shooter. New York Police Department offered a $10,000 reward. United Healthcare offered a $15 copay. That's funny. Do you hear that? The guy may not even get the reward because he called 911, not the tip number. Did you see that, Alicia?
No.
Yes, they're going to try to screw this. I guess some old boomer that called it in. He may not get the reward because no, you're supposed to call the tip line, not 911. And I was like, wow. So what a joke that is.
That's a real joke. Yeah, they need to give him his money. Like,
yeah, it's maybe he hasn't met his reward deductible yet. That could be the situation there too.
That's it.
All right. If you guys didn't know, if you're coming in, more and more people come in. Who's the lady? Who's your guest tonight? It's Alicia. And let me introduce her some more. I almost forgot I did the first time you were on. She's a writer for Evie magazine, is it?
Yeah.
And you could check her out. I first met her because Kim Coulter, a mutual friend of ours, we had a Dungeons and Dragons session online. I had a blast with it. I did it for, I don't know, 6 months, but I ran out of time to be able to do that, to commit to it. But I had a blast. And Alicia, she was, I think, a druid that turned into a wolf or something like that, right?
Yep. I was a druid that liked being a wolf more than being a human. So, and I still am. We still play. So.
Yeah. So that's why I put the wolf thing on the thumbnails as a kind of a tribute to her. Is that still going on, by the way? I think it is. I'm still in that.
Yeah, it is. We're probably gonna like reconvene around January 1st. Like all the babies, like me having baby and then Kim having baby, kind of like threw things off, and then the holidays on top of it. But yeah, it's still going.
Yeah, so I invited her to come on because I've had different iterations of Happy Homelands. I had one years ago with Tina Veek. She was in Finland. That was when streaming was just starting, and I had the idea, well, hey, we get someone from Europe, and then we'll talk about these issues. She was a great host. Unfortunately, she passed away a couple years ago, or really young. She was only like 36. And then Styx Hexenhammer was my host for a while. You know Styx, don't you, Alicia? You've heard his name?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. He's like a libertarian type. And then Sasha filled in for a bit. And Sasha and I, we do night owls every week. Had a great time. And I'm like, oh, I'll just start this up again. And Alicia, I thought it'd be a good fit. So is why she's here. So yeah, show her some love and just send in some more questions. I appreciate that. Alicia, I want to go over a little bit this because it's interesting. And I think because you wrote this, we should discuss this. And this is what Luigi Mangione reposted. If you want to understand men better, look at all the movies they made, books that they've written, and games they invented when they're young. Almost every single one is about a young man being thrust into a position or situation he doesn't know if he can overcome. So this is kind of the young man's hero journey. And in the end, he rises above, he wins. Men are made for impossible situations and daring feats. I watched it myself with my husband as he figures out how to provide a desirable quality of life for his family. Yeah, it's interesting you really tapped into this, Alicia. I do think men have this desire. The problem is how do we function in a modern society when it's hard to really live this? And this is very similar to what, did you ever read the Ted Kaczynski's manifesto?
No, I actually haven't.
He kind of talked a lot about these issues about how human beings, we were raised for 10,000s of years, kind of tribal, hunt mammoth, that type of thing. And now we become so civilized and so sterile that how do you really have the role as the hero, even though that could be in our hearts and soul, when you have to go into work in a cube in accounting, and get your PowerPoint presentation together. Is that kind of what you meant by that? And uh, what was your more of a thoughts about that whole thing that you wrote?
Yeah, so I think you have to kind of game the system. Psychology uses the term reframe. So I completely agree that we are men, specifically, are from an era where, it was very, knights and soldiers and man against the wilderness. And
Hmm.
this is very ingrained in the heart of man. And we're obviously not doing those things anymore. However, what hasn't changed is that men are still providing for their families. And so, again, I think you have to reframe everything and you have to look at the parallels that we have available to us. So, nowadays, we're not maybe fighting against a man and we're not fighting against the wilderness, but we're fighting against the toxins in our food and we're fighting against sedentary lifestyle and we are fighting against the
Well, just all the woke stuff or
all of that
censorship.
wants to
And,
destroy families.
right. And I've often said that. And well, we have a good example we'll talk about later in the show. Daniel Penny. He
Yeah.
actually took a stand. He did. He wasn't looking to do that, but he did.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, sometimes I have an expression: you got to do right and risk the consequences. Meaning, you got to do really the right thing. And we see that when it's speaking the truth, even though that you may get censored. And it's amazing how many people, I'm not criticizing anyone, but they're so scared to speak up because, oh, I might get in trouble at my job or something. And I'm like, the people that founded this country, they were all risk being hanged for their position. So sometimes you do have to take that stand even though there's risk involved. But we're a very risk averse society. And I think what compounds it is this whole, and maybe the younger guys are getting out of this, but this whole feminism of, oh, toxic masculinity, you shouldn't do stuff like that. I think that really harms it. And then you have a lot of these men that they don't really know how to be men, and they're scared, oh, if I try to act like a man, that's toxic. And I wonder if that's part of the sudden rise to all this transgender stuff. Like, oh, I'll just be a girl then. Maybe that'd be better.
Yeah, I think again, the heart of a man is made to be a conqueror. And the global cabal knows that. And so if you can defang and declaw a man, then you've just defeated society. You have, that's the last bulwark that's there in between whatever you want to do to a population, whether you want to subjugate it or not. And I really think that's why they've gone after men so hard, is to conquer the conqueror. And I think that men, if they want to put a stop to this, and they have to stand up and they have to reframe the situation, be like, no, like I stuff feels mundane, but I'm gonna make it not mundane. I'm gonna look at it as like something that I'm conquering every single day, something that I'm providing every single day. And that's how you win. Because that's not what the world wants. The world wants to beat you down. The world wants you to be depressed, wants you to be fat. And if you resist that, then you're winning.
Yeah, they really do. And I just happened to see a thing. I don't have a prep, but I saw a thing on X where YouTube is actually limiting they're basically shadow banning fitness videos for Europeans that are targeted for like young men.
Mm.
They don't want them to see that. This is really a war on that. And I'm not one that everyone has to look perfect or anything like that, but there is sort of a spiritual thing I see on the left where they elevate ugliness. And you saw it early in the 20th century. I think we first saw it in modern art, where it's just ugly. It's to try to bring people down. Whereas it used to be art was to lift up and architecture to be beautiful. And there seems to be a thing like, well, if I can't be pretty or if I can't be great, no one can. I want to pull everyone down, which is really the heart of communism. And I see that a lot in our society, trying to keep everyone down.
They're trying to keep everyone down. I would argue that it's actually even more insidious than that. So if we take a look at beauty, this whole thing with like you mentioned, the art, it started with the art and started with the architecture, the Cold War, all of that. And what we saw was a real trend toward ugliness. And this was the start of when we saw of the movement that beauty is not objective, it's subjective. And so now, you know, we have gone through all of these decades and we've come to the point now where we are like being forced to call people like Lizzo beautiful.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's funny you brought that up. I'll let you continue, but I brought that up to my wife, Sasha. And, Sasha's, I think I'm biased, but I think she's a beautiful blonde woman, in shape and everything. And she mentioned how you just don't, if you notice like in television programs, you rarely see blonde people anymore. And if you have whites at all, and they really try to push these really ugly people that, oh no, Lizzo's beautiful. And it's like, no, no, she isn't. Who you're kidding?
It's I would argue that this is the thing. If we take a look at what beauty is and examine it and like examine why is there a war over it? So let's look at what beauty is. When I say something, so like if there's a waterfall, this is actually from a book that C.S. Lewis wrote. It's really good. You should all read it. This is not this is his argument, but I agree with it. If you look at a waterfall and you say that is beautiful, you are not making the waterfall beautiful. You are not like making some sort of like your words do nothing to that waterfall. What you're communicating is your alignment with the natural state of the world, the natural state of being. And so if the government can make you become disaligned, then it can make you do anything. And that's the whole point of this, is to make everybody confused, everybody anxious, everybody going against their instincts, because that's what this is you don't have to ponder, you don't have to sit there and say, is that beautiful? No. Humans automatically know if something is pleasant and desirable. And what the government is doing is making everybody second guess themselves. They're making us gaslight ourselves. And that, because again, after that, a population that does that is easy to subjugate. It's easy to fall for any propaganda that comes your way.
Yeah, it's a gaslighting that it's amazing how far they pushed it. And speaking of like the transgender issue, especially when you have these big burly guys with a beard and they have a dress on and they're like, I'm a woman and I'm beautiful and you better say I am, otherwise you're a bigot.
It's ma'am.
Yeah,
It's my favorite video.
Yeah, no, it's a ma'am.
It's ma'am.
It's a denial I've always talked about of reality. And a lot of the left, they think if they just have magic words, they can change reality. So if they can convince you that a big hairy man with a beard wearing a dress is really a woman and everyone agrees with it, that will make it so. But it doesn't make it so. It's just it's like the boy in the emperor's fine clothes. He's just naked, right? It's just obvious. It's a man in a dress. That's all it is.
That's the thing, isn't it, though, is that like that's what identity politics are, is that like, so the top people like Justin Trudeau, like his thing that we'll get to later,
Yeah,
don't actually believe, that Lizzo is beautiful. But if you tell everybody else that like has this worldview, that then like they hop on board, because what they want to do is they're not concerned really with, again, like I don't think they're concerned with creating a new reality, because you can't do that, because if something is objective, you cannot change the reality of that objectivity. That's the whole point. you can only make people gaslight themselves.
Right.
So
yeah, and I don't even know. A part of it, they're just playing the politics. One example always comes in mind is, I'm sure you've heard of the actor Leonardo DiCaprio. You've heard of him, right? And he's always, women are beautiful at any size, age, whatever. But he always dates like 20-year-olds.
as soon as they turn 25.
Yeah, it's funny. They showed a graph. He just
yeah, the magic number is 25. Literally, as soon as they turn 25, he breaks up with them.
I know, but then he comes around, and he does this more than just with sexual stuff. He'll do it with like climate change. Oh, climate change is the most important issue of our time, and then he buys this huge yacht. So they're hypocrites. They say what they need to say to try to fit in. And I'm going to look at something else from Luigi, but before we get that, I have another power chat. So thank you, Louis Barrow. Will Luigi do, how well will Luigi do in prison around diversity? He comes from a much different type of background than the violent tyros he will be faced to live around. I don't know. I've never spent time in prison. I've known people that have been in prison, and they say some of this is somewhat exaggerated. I know a guy named Jim Goad. A lot of you guys know him. He's an excellent author, and he was in prison, and he said, I've never heard of anyone being raped. That's kind of a meme. And if you just, don't cause trouble, you'll be okay. And so I really can't speak to it. Can you, Alicia? I have no idea.
From what I've read, essentially you just join a gang based off of your race or cultural alignment, and
Right.
you're to go. Because like that's kind of the thing, is like everybody just segregates themselves, and as long as you really don't mess with anybody, nobody messes with you.
Yeah, and they're very in prison. It is true that Jim Go told me that they're extremely race realist, and the racists can get along. But if you're a white guy, you do not sit with black guys. And not only the black guys will give you a problem if you do it, but the other white prisoners may shank you if you do that, and vice versa. So race is a reality that we pretend doesn't matter, but it's a real thing. How will Luigi do? I don't know. He's kind of a Southern Mediterranean Italian type. So I don't know. He's white, but kind of different. Let's see here. And I want to show something else Luigi posted, and maybe we get his comment. And this had to do with in Japan, because he was in Japan, and Alicia lived there for 4 years. And he did this post here. Modern Japanese urban environment is an evolutionary mismatch for the human animal. The solution to failing birth rates isn't immigration, it's cultural. Encourage natural human interaction, sex, physical fitness, and spirituality. Then he talks about some of these things. I don't even know what they are. I hate to ask you, Alicia. Ban Tenga fleshlights and Japan railhole. I don't know what those are, and then replace conveyor belt sushi restaurants and maid. You mentioned maid cafes in the last show. So I think this is all like degenerate sex stuff they get into, the Japanese. So he's saying, and it's interesting because just a week ago we were talking about this, and we were sounding like Luigi quite a bit.
Yeah. So I can actually explain it if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, so in Don Quixote is so fun. It's chaos packed inside a tiny little box, and you get to experience it. It literally has everything. It's like Walmart, except condensed. It literally has everything Walmart has, except it's so much smaller and more fun, and it smells good because there's always roasting sweet potatoes somewhere. And so you walk through the store, and then you come across this aisle that there's this curtain across, and you're like, why is there a curtain across this aisle? And for some reason, this curtain is inside this toy aisle for children. What's going on? And then you go in, and it's just porn and sex toys. And you're like, oh, why is this here? And so then you leave very quickly because you're embarrassed, and other people are sometimes there. And then it's just yeah. And so Yeah, that's in Don Quixote's, and for some reason, at least in the one that was in my town, it was in the children's toy aisle. And so, yeah, sex toys, there's no reason for them. They're gross. I agree with that. Replace conveyor belt sushi in restaurant vending machine ordering with actual interaction with the waiter.
Is
So
this where everything's automated so you don't have to deal with a waiter where it's just like, because I heard their vending machines are more sophisticated than we have.
yeah, so vending machine ordering, so the area that I lived in was Fukuoka and Sasebo specifically. So I never experienced the vending machine dining, but I loved dining in Japan because, and I disagree. Don't get rid of Sushi Go Round. That was my favorite restaurant in in Japan because it was so great. You get like you pay $1 or two for 2 pieces of nigiri. So it's like it's a bed of rice and then a whole chunk of fish on top, and you're only paying $2 for 2 pieces.
Hmm.
And you stack up all your plates, and at the end they measure it with a ruler and then like scan the little barcode, and then you just like take your ticket and go to the front. It's so nice. You just like grab plates off this conveyor belt. You order the food and this little like touch screen, and it's fed. It's awesome. Like I just go there to pig out, and it was wonderful. So no, don't get rid of Sushi Go Round. But I thought restaurant life in Japan was very nice because you also had buttons to call the waiter. So if you needed something, you just press it. I don't know. I don't really.
I will have to get more information from you because I was talking to Sasha and we want to go next year to Japan. So
Oh,
that's on our
everybody
list.
needs to go. I love Japan.
Yeah. So we will definitely do that.
So replace 24/7 esports cafes where young males earn false fitness signals via Tengen fighting and Overwatch shooting games with athletics in school. Sure, and they do athletics in their schools, but maybe not where he was. I don't know. Everything is pretty standard. But yeah, like I agree. Like men shouldn't feel like they're like all macho for playing a video game. Um, Heavily stigmatized maid cafes were lonely. Yes. Yep, I talked about that last time. It's really
Yeah.
they're themed. You have your French maids, you have some of them are like young girls, some of them are anime. And the girls aren't actually young, they're just dressed to look creepily young. And so yeah, get rid of that. That's degenerate. Revitalize traditional Japanese culture, Shintoism, Okinawan karate, onsen, etc. When I was there, that was very still popular. So I'm not, maybe it was popular because I was with other people that were interested in those things already. Maybe I saw a different side of it than he did. But no, like all I did in Japan whenever I traveled was go to onsens and hiking and shrines. My dog actually would go, we got rid of her, but she would eat the offering food. But she would break out of our house and go run to the graveyard and eat the offerings that people left for their
Oh
animals.
no, is that like sacrilege or something?
Oh, definitely.
Now, is it Korea that eats dogs or Japan? It's Korea, right?
I don't know that Korea eats dogs. China eats dogs.
Or is it China? Yeah, they
China is like eat dog time of year, and they lock them in cages and blow.
yeah, they're very cruel. I mean,
Yeah,
I hate to say it, they
while
can
they're
be
alive.
a very cruel people, at least
Yeah,
China. So
no, it's disgusting.
yeah, that Japanese girl I knew, she always said, "Oh, Chinese are dirty. We don't
Yeah.
like them." So that
And
was
then
kind of
hiking
funny.
down the street, the kids have these pants that like open up in the middle, but like while they're standing, they're so baggy while they're standing up, you can't see anything, and the kid will just squat down in the middle of the street and go poop. It's not in all places of China. This is like the more rural places,
Right.
but yeah, it's
It
yeah.
sounds like India or something, because they're always big on
Yeah,
pooping everywhere.
Nepal was similar.
Yeah.
I tried to sell us this fruit vendor. We were walking by and he was like, and then spit on the thing, and it was like, do you
Oh.
want fruit? And we're like, no.
Yeah, no thanks for that. No thanks for that. And onsen, is that like the pool or something? I think I heard that.
Yes. So onsen is Japan, as we know, is a volcanic island, and so they have lots of geothermal energy, and they have lots of water that is bubbling up through their rock that is heavily mineralized with healing minerals. And so people go, and different onsens have different benefits because of the different minerals that are coming up through the earth. And then you just make a day of it, and you go to the different baths, and you have little towels, and it's very relaxing and nice. And guys have their section and girls have their section.
Oh, so they don't mix. Okay.
No.
All right. And this was a rant we got, so thank you for this. Pam Hyde, if you write or say things that you don't believe, you are much more likely to believe in it in the future. The Chinese did this to brainwash POWs. They have done studies on this since. Yes. There was someone that lived in Czechoslovakia under communism wrote a pamphlet called, I think it was called Living the Truth, the Green Grocer. Let me look it up here real quick because I want to get his name right. Yeah, The Power of the Powerless. And this was by Havel. And he wrote under communism, Alicia. And what he said is, if you can't speak the truth, it eventually corrodes your soul. So if nothing else, you have to speak the truth. And under communism, the system he lived under, everyone has to lie and pretend everything's wonderful and stuff. Otherwise, you're a counter-revolutionary. And it was an interesting thing. And I think that is so important for us, even in America, that we're always willing to speak the truth. Now, we could be wrong. No one's perfect. But to forcibly, like going back to the transgender thing, to call a man a girl when you know it's not a girl, it's, I think, harmful to your soul.
Yeah.
And so we get another one. And once Alicia comes back, well, I'll ask her this. But let me copy. Oh, there you are. I'm sorry.
Oh, I never left. Sorry.
Well, you know what I did? I was looking at the Rumble thing, and it's a little behind. It was when you jumped up and stuff. So you just boomer, right? All right, all right. We got one from Tony here. Tony, healthcare and its cost, and let's see. I'm not sure how Japan does it, but in the U.S., Rams, how much is the cost driven up by 20 million illegals receiving free care at our emergency rooms? Imagine if we could turn down any free care for any illegal. Your plan for savings. I'll allow Alicia to talk about Japan, although she probably wasn't on it because she, I think, was with her husband in the military. But I think they do have basically they have one payer, is it? But you have to pay some. Or can you speak to that, how they do it in Japan?
Yeah, so I can only speak a little bit to it because I did have to experience that side of it, unfortunately. So I was on TRICARE because of my husband. I was a dependent.
Yeah.
And so that's what I ran through. But while I was in the Japanese hospital for my pregnancy complications with hyperemesis, one of the drugs that I needed is called Zofran, or ondansetron is like the generic term for it. And its licensed use is for chemotherapy patients. So it makes your nausea go away. It like targets that center of your brain. And Japan is a socialized healthcare system. And apparently that means for them that if you cannot be prescribed a drug if you don't have, if you're like not, you can only be prescribed Zofran if you're a chemotherapy patient. The hospital couldn't prescribe me that drug and couldn't give it to me because I was pregnant, and that would be like an off-license use. And so because they're a socialized healthcare system, that meant that I couldn't get the drug. That's all I really know about their system. Foreigners though, there is medical tourism to Japan. You just have to put money, and it's fairly expensive.
Well, we have, when I was in Romania, I met a guy that watched my show. It's kind of funny how I meet people around the world. And he was an American, and he came to Romania to get his face fixed. I know that sounds funny, but it wasn't funny. He was in Iraq, and he didn't have insurance, so he couldn't get the plastic surgery, and it wasn't like Botox to try be look sexy or something. He needed fixed, and he couldn't afford it in the United States, so he flew to Romania. And actually, flying to Romania was still cheaper to get his face fixed there. So that the medical tourism is a big thing. Some people go down to Mexico to get dental work, and it can be pretty good. So that definitely can be it. And yeah, socialized medicine in one way sounds good, but I have a viewer from Australia, and he didn't say what, but he has some sort of elective procedure he needed to done. And it was the first appointment he could get in, and I'm not joking, was like 5 years out. So it's like, okay, Alicia, do you have July 3rd, 2029? Is that open for you? That's literally what they do. It's so crazy.
When I lived in Canada, I lived there when I was. Oh, okay, am I still there?
Yeah,
That
you're
was scary.
fine.
Okay, good. Thank goodness. So when I lived in Canada, there was an old lady that went to our church, and she needed a hip replacement,
Hmm.
and she couldn't ever like get the appointments. When she needed them, you have to wait inordinate amounts of time. She finally gets in for her surgery. She's been in severe pain for years and years. She gets in for her surgery. She's about to sign the papers, and they're like, by the way, we don't have your size hip that you've waited years to get. Like, somehow, although this was years in the process, we don't have the size of hip that you need. So we can put in this, I forgot if it's a smaller one or a larger one, but it's a mismatched size, or you can just go back on the waiting list, and when we have this size available, we'll let you know.
Wow. Yeah.
It's barbaric, is what it is.
It is. And I remember listening to Laura Chen. Laura Chen? She was in the news because of that Russia stuff. But before that, she's a Canadian. She talked about her father had like some sort of cancer, I think. Or maybe it's a heart condition, whatever, but it's something serious. And she had to bring him back to the United States to get the treatment. They paid for it because in Canada, you would wait forever. So that's the problem with socialized medicine is you end up rationing it, and it gets bureaucratic. And so if you have these procedures, it's fine if you like break a leg or something. They usually deal with that quickly, but anything else, you got a lot of problems with it. Robert had a question, and thank you, Robert. I appreciate it. And guys, keep sending in your super chats and rants. And Robert, Alicia, let's see here. Let me bring this up here. There we go. Alicia, for Alicia, on a Japanese subway, could you imagine a Jordan Neely surviving one day, let alone 40 arrests like he did in New York City? Daniel Penny would be a national hero in Japan, would he not? I had a Japanese guy that was on my round table, and I'll let Alicia answer this, but he kind of talked about a little bit about this. This was a couple of years ago, but they have a thing where it's a sense of shame that if you act like a fool, you're not only disgracing yourself, you're disgracing your family. Alicia, what do you think about this?
Yeah, so I have actually, to my delight, gotten to see this play out in real life. Not while I was there, but there are these thugs that these TikTok thugs that keep going to Japan and doing their stupid little
Oh, I saw that, like Johnny Somali and all those types.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So what happens is the average Japanese person will actually not do anything because they are very polite. They are very like, let's just ignore the problem. We're just going to maintain the front. So what happens is one of two things. The Yakuza actually gets involved because they're the only ones that'll do something about it. And so they are like the 1950s kind of like the Al Capone. They're like classy gangsters.
Oh, I think I heard of them, and they like cut off their fingertips to show they're part of the gang or something. I heard something about that.
I don't know anything. I can't speak to that. But like yeah, they're involved in crime. They're not, not good guys, but they do occasionally do good things because they have this code of moral ethics, which all of Japan has. And so what has happened is that the Yakuza will come and find you and then drop you off to the police station. The other thing that happens that I've gotten to see is Japan's legal system is very different from our own. While here we are innocent until proven guilty, in Japan you are guilty until proven otherwise.
Right.
And so the police will take you. So here we also have laws about interrogation and lawyers. In Japan, they do not have those. So the police will take you. They will psychologically torture you with interviewing you like all night long. They do not care. They actually like enjoy it a little bit. And then the other thing is that if you are not complying, if you are just being a dumbass, they will soft torture you, which means, so I saw this on a video. There was this TikTok star who got arrested. He wasn't complying with the police were telling him to do. And so they had him in a room and he was sitting on somebody's lap. His butt was on somebody's lap. Somebody was on their knees and the TikToker's feet were on the other person's knees. His legs were fully extended. And then there was a third man on top of his knees. So these are the wonderful things that can happen to you if you decide to FAFO in Japan. They have had enough. They are putting up posters. And I kid you not, like this is like a legitimate poster. I'm not making this up to be funny or anything else like that. Japan is very into like cartoons and cute little animals. And so they put up these posters with these cute little animals that are just like sitting on the subway peacefully. And you have like a little otter, and then you have a bunny, and you have a little fox. And then you have all of these monkeys that are like acting crazy on the subway. And then it says, be quiet and respectful on the subway.
Oh, gosh.
Like these monkeys.
Dappy racist. Yeah, we shouldn't have to put up with that. When I lived in Hungary, I rode the subway. People literally read books. Yeah. They were quiet, and it was nice. It was all white. And let me just show you just recently something. And this is what we get typically in the United States now. We just have this random bullshit that goes on like that, and we shouldn't have to put up with that. That guy needs to be in the mental asylum or in prison, and people don't want to see that. I don't care what your race is.
Yeah.
And so now in the Daniel Penny case, that was, well, let's listen to Daniel Penny. Let's kind of transition to that right now. And this is kind of what we were talking about, the man's quest to be a hero or whatever. And here was just a quick segment, 28 seconds. So let's take a look at this.
The guilt I would have felt if someone did get hurt, if he did do what he was threatening to do, would never be able to live with myself. And I'll take 1 million court appearances and people calling me names and people hating me just to keep one of those people from getting hurt or killed.
Yeah, so he did the right thing, and he's a real hero, and he stood up for people. And it wasn't racial. Actually, some black women testified in his defense because Neely was threatening to kill people. Neely said, I don't care. I'm going to go to prison forever, but I'm going to kill you. He was a violent man. And Penny, put him in a chokehold. And another black guy jumped up and helped him too. And it was interesting that he was found not guilty by a jury in New York City that was composed even of black women. And Alicia, there wasn't any rioting. Has the vibe changed?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think that criminals are finally getting the message of FAFO. I think that we have MAGA, we have MAHA, and we have FAFO, and I think that things are changing. I think that people will always be idiots in their worldviews. I don't think that is going anywhere, but I think that people are starting to realize that there are consequences for their actions, and that's where we need to be.
Yeah, I 100% agree on that, and I'm happy. I know you said your husband would do like Daniel Penny and stand up and do the right thing, and no matter well, what's the law? Am I going to get in trouble? And I think that's what people need to do. You can't always use the calculation of, oh, well, I'm going to get in trouble or not. As you wrote in your post, the hero's journey, we got to do things. And that doesn't mean, I'm not saying anyone do anything illegal, do anything crazy, but you got to be able to stand up for what's right. A lot of the men I've noticed, my grandfather, I remember, my father too, but my grandfather, he was old school, and he wasn't, it was weird how masculinity has changed. We either have like thugs or soy boys. We don't have anyone in between. But my grandfather, he worked on the railroad. He was a blue collar worker, and he was a very nice guy, but he was a tough guy too. And he wouldn't tolerate that stuff like on the subway. He wouldn't put up with that. And is somehow we've got this weird dichotomy. Either you got to be a thug, that has your pants hanging down and threatening people, or you got to be this real wussy soy boy. And it's like the whole sense of what the proper masculinity has been lost.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that unfortunately, not many people realize that masculinity tends to be quiet. There's a quote that I like. Well, there's actually two quotes that I like. So Thomas Roosevelt, speak softly and carry a big stick.
Yes.
And then the other one that I like, and I don't know where it's from, is demons run when a good man goes to war. And that sends chill bumps because it's so true. Your best men, and this is recognized, won't hesitate to do the right thing, no matter what that means.
All right, and let's take a look at. There's a quick clip by Megyn Kelly about BLM. Let's just take a quick look at this.
Meanwhile, someone over on Neely's side, he's sort of describing him as the victim. He wasn't the victim. He was the aggressor. He was the criminal on that subway car that day.
I agree with her, wouldn't you, Alicia?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I'm tired of this. Like, oh, he's just the Black Lives Matter or the racial grievances. They were trying to do this narrative that somehow Daniel Penny's some sort of white supremacist KKK that just randomly picked on a poor black guy that was reading a book. No, this guy was threatening people, throwing stuff at people. He'd been arrested 43 times, which is another issue. I've been arrested 0 times. If you've been arrested 43 times, maybe you shouldn't be among us, right?
No, I'm like, let's take a look. Like, what is real privilege here? Like,
right,
being arrested 43 times and still walking among the free, or like, come on.
And that's just being arrested, because usually when you do this shitty behavior, you don't get arrested, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's been in trouble forever.
Frequent flyer.
Right. And before I forget, I was going to ask you, do they have a problem in a lot of cities? They have problems with homeless or crazy people. Do they in Japan, or do they deal with that different?
I don't really remember seeing any homeless people in Japan.
And a lot of people were asking, well, why we need services for people like Neely where they can have shelter. He did. He went to it and he left after 13 days. He didn't want to be there.
Yep.
And that's part of the issue.
Who was seriously threatening other passengers. He had a long history of hurting them. And somebody on his side yelled out in the courtroom, "It's a racist country."
Yeah, he actually broke the face of some elderly woman or man previously, too. This was a violent criminal.
Hello, madam or sir, that's not working anymore. You're going to have to find a new line. I don't know what it's going to be. But the BLM era is officially over. It's over.
I agree with that. I don't think people have much tolerance with this anymore when they see this type of behavior. And again, it wasn't really so much racial. I mean, the response was racial because let's face it, if it had been a white guy and Daniel Penny did the exact same thing, he wouldn't have been arrested. But people don't want thugs attacking people on a subway or disturbing the peace. We just don't want that. And if you can't act like a decent human being, you either need to be in the mental asylum, we should open those up again, or be in prison or the graveyard. You don't need to be around us.
You had us in some sort of weird, psychotic headspin for 4 or 5 years, and it's done.
I think part of that, the whole George Floyd thing, because that was strange too. That guy was a drug addict. He wasn't some angel. That was a bizarre thing. All these white people crying. He had 4 funerals. It's just crazy. Mm-hmm. And he was a forger. He had a whole history of problems. He was a thug. I mean, I don't really care that he died.
Stab a pregnant woman. There is something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think part of the insanity came about. It was funny how the whole society sometimes can have hysteria run through it. I think I was separate from it, but I observed it. And it was during the whole COVID hysteria and everything else. And it's just like people's minds just broke. And somehow, blacks are these special, wonderful creatures that don't really commit crimes. If they are in prison, it's just because of white supremacy. Like, have you ever been around them? And it's really bizarre how that period we went through.
Trump's reelected and Daniel Penny is acquitted in one of the most leftist jurisdictions in America, despite the fact that he is white and Jordan Neely was black. And they're still yelling, "It's a racist country, you fools. You absolute fools." And by the way, it's not just someone over on Jordan Neely's side. We had news coming into today that the outgoing chair of the DNC said his party is insane if they think the message of this election was to rethink identity politics. Double down, sir. Triple down. Quadruple. Do it. Enjoy oblivion. Enjoy your desert island where you have no one applauding anything you say and certainly no one voting for you. I look forward to watching you there. CNN reports that Neely's father also had to be escorted from the courtroom after shouting an expletive. Where was he? Where was he when Jordan Neely had dozens of arrests over the years? When he was punching 67-year-old women in the face? Where was the grieving dad then? I'm not sure. Now he's suing Daniel Penny. Oh, okay. You're going to get your money. Now you're totally behind your son. I don't feel sorry for you. I don't. Sorry, I don't.
Yeah, that was really good comments from Megan Kelly. And I think a lot more people, Alicia, are feeling this way too. So I think that's a good sign about how it's really changed all this race stuff and people are tired of it. And I think he may sue back. But as I predicted, people were worried, they're going to be riots. I said, I don't really think so. And there hasn't been any. So that was a good thing. All right. We mentioned Trudeau, and so let's just talk about this real briefly. And I'll show the clip. It's only 36 seconds, so it's not too long. There, we can all watch this. And thank you guys for being here. If you have questions, do a super chat or rants. Love to get them. Thank you.
No, it shouldn't be that way. It wasn't supposed to be that way. We were supposed to be on a steady, if difficult sometimes, march towards progress. And yet, just a few weeks ago, the United States voted for a second time to not elect its first woman president.
This guy is so gay. This guy is so. Oh no.
Everywhere, women's rights and women's progress is under attack, overtly and subtly. But I want you to know that I am, and always will be, a proud feminist. You will always have an ally in me and in my government.
Your thoughts about this, Alicia?
Feminist. Oh, you will. I mean, Castro's son certainly has a lot to say.
He does look like Castro. There is that rumor.
Have you looked at the pictures?
Yes, he does.
He's not Castro's son.
Well, I know his mother, when he was, his supposed father, she was like fawning, just looking at and gaga. Yeah. Yeah. I think that definitely was the case there. So, so was this a failure, a defeat for women? The whole thing here. What's your take on all that?
No, because here's the thing, and this is where identity politics. I don't think Trudeau believes a word of what he says. He's pandering to the people with that victim mindset, that victim worldview. And here's reality. If you suck, we're not going to elect you. I mean, granted, Biden got elected and all of that, but this isn't. We didn't not elect Kamala because she was a woman. We didn't elect her because she's psychotic.
Yes. And Hillary too. My God, who wants to put up with those?
Nobody wants a psychopath with unhinged emotions and mental processes to be in the White House. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, but that was, and this is part of, I have sometimes issues with Trump. He's not perfect, but I will always love Trump can do this type of thing. And I don't know if you saw this, Alicia. This was hilarious. It was a pleasure. This is Donald Trump. It was a pleasure to have dinner with the other night with the Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state, not country, of Canada. I look forward to seeing the governor again soon so that we may continue our deep talks on tariffs and trade, the results of which will be truly spectacular for all. And then he pushed DJ T. What a boomer. It's so funny. Because Trudeau was bitching about, these tariffs would just be so bad for us. And he's like, well, if you're that weak, maybe you should just become a state. Maybe we'll make you the 51st state. And Trudeau, you can be the governor. And now he's just trolling them. I think this is hilarious.
That's the fact of the matter, though, is that the only reason why Canada exists is because through the good graces of America. Let's be real here.
Yeah. It came close to becoming part of America during the Revolutionary War. So if it wasn't for the French, it probably would have been. So, if they became part of the United States, they would get the First Amendment and Second Amendment. A lot of people would probably like it, but I don't know if I'd want Canada. They have a lot of shit libs up there, so that may be.
But they have oil.
They do have a lot of oil, and they have a lot of good people. I have a lot of viewers from Canada, so that is a thing too. And the other thing we had here, and this was a shame because I thought, by the year 2024, we were beyond some of this. But this was that basketball player in the women's NBA. I don't know. I don't watch it. No one does except lesbians. And Caitlin Clark, though, she's like the star, which, it's like being the star in the Special Olympics, really. But she's a star. And she's kind of weird because she's white, because they're mostly black. And she actually likes guys, and most of them are lesbians. And so Caitlin Clark says she has has white privilege in her Time Athlete of the Year piece. And she had to go on about that and talk about, kind of debase herself about being white. And I wish people want to do this. I guess I understand her point of view because she plays mostly among other blacks and she gets filed a lot heavily. But it's sad that people, I want to say I've learned of every single thing, but as a white person, there is privilege. It's mostly a black league. I don't know what she's talking about. What was your thoughts about her doing this thing?
I honestly felt sorry for her. That was my first reaction. I was a D1 athlete at an extremely liberal college, Rice University down in Houston. And that was my first reaction, is that my first thought is that a lot of somebody's bullied her into that thought process. She's been brainwashed. That's the
Right.
fact. She's been in this game for long enough that is what's happened. And I felt sorry for her because she feels the need through the bullying of others to share her spotlight when she should be taking center stage. She should not feel guilt over that, but people have made her to. And that's why she's sharing this spotlight. And it's just, I feel really bad for her, honestly. I hope that she can come past it eventually. I don't know if that'll happen because, as you said, the WNBA is a heavily black, heavily liberal organization. She's not being supported. You and I, because we're outside of that situation, can look at that and be like, "You're one of the only white players. What do you mean, white privilege?"
Right.
But she's not able to, because this is what has been inserted into her head daily.
Do you think she? I know we're not telepathic, but do you think she believes it, or it been brainwashed, or she, her agents told her she needs to say this type of thing to fit in?
I don't see why there's a reason that it can't be both. I remember being an athlete, and I would have never openly admitted that I had white privilege because I knew how hard I worked, and there's just something in me that will not relinquish that. But I also feel, coming from that game, I can understand if some part of her genuinely believes that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I 100% believe there are people telling her to say that.
Right. And yeah, it would make it difficult for her if she didn't say that. I get it, playing in that league. So it's just easier to say that. But it's unfortunate. And
I guarantee there's people that are telling her oh, so and so should have got it, or so and so, all these different black people, but the only reason you got it is because you're white. It's the story that we hear a lot, very often.
Right. I think there's some truth to that. I think part of the issue that's very uncomfortable for the current culture, and I'll just be honest about that, are the best female basketball player in the world is Caitlin Clark now, and she's white, and the best NBA player in the world is Jokic, which he's a Denver Nuggets and he's white. So it's kind of like this was traditionally, at least in recent years, a quote black sport. And I think there's some issues with that where you have the best players now are white. And that's been such a change that you just didn't ever see that before. And I'm a Denver Bronco fan. And this is the first time in I can ever remember, they have a white cornerback. Are you familiar with football, Alicia?
A little bit.
But the cornerbacks, they defend the receivers. Sometimes the safeties are white, but the cornerbacks are always, because it's twitch muscle, they're almost all 100% black. But the Denver Broncos, Riley Moss, he's a white guy. And he probably should have been drafted higher, but for racial reasons. And he's one of the best cornerbacks in the league right now. He plays for the Denver Broncos and he's white. So I think there's some issues here with the whole racial aspect of it. Of well, it's kind of like, wait a minute, what's happening here? This should be our sport. So yeah, I think that is the issue there. All right. Let's see here. Just go through here if we got any more. If you guys have any other questions, send them in. Love to get that. And let's take a look at a couple other things here. I had this that came up and I want to discuss with you, Alicia. And what's your young men leaving traditional churches for masculine Orthodox Christianity in droves. And I replied, because many of the other denominations have become gay. And I said literally.
Yeah.
And that is sad.
Hilarious.
And I was raised, I think before the show, I think you said you were raised Baptist, were you?
Yeah, Southern Baptist.
Yeah, I was too. And I went to a Christian school in Colorado years ago, in the 70s. And the thing is, sadly, there's been a lot of denominations that they try to appeal to the world. They don't follow the gospel. And you have all this LGBTQ stuff, women priests, and all this BLM. And it doesn't really appeal to people. It's like, hey, I could just go to a gay bathhouse. Why should I join, this, why should I join that? So, what's your take on that? And I mean, I don't want to get personal if you want to say your religion or not, or what do you think about this?
Yeah, so like I'm one of those people. So
Oh, are you Orthodox?
I'm Catholic. I actually
Okay, but that's close. Orthodox is kind of like,
yeah.
they had this historically is this obscure debate about the Trinity, and I don't want to offend anyone that caused the schism, but yeah, go ahead.
Catholicism was first. We're the originals. Anyway, so no, 2 years ago I converted to Catholicism, and it wasn't because the Southern Baptist was becoming gay or whatever, but it was because I wanted more structure and I wanted more so this is the thing about Protestant denominations, and I'm not trying to offend anybody by saying this. This is just the truth. This is how it works. Protestant denominations, they have, heads, they have committees, and they have people that decide on issues of the faith, and it can change year by year if they want it to. They can say oh, now we believe this. Oh, now we believe that. Let's vote on it. What does, how is the Holy Spirit moving? And it's they're not grounded in anything. And children, psychologists have proven that children, more than anything, what they want, what they desire deepest in their hearts is boundaries. They have discovered that the happiest children are the children with boundaries, consistent, firm boundaries.
That is true. And dogs, by the way.
Yes. Your best dogs have boundaries. But so that's what children want. And I don't think that we ever grow out of that, actually. And I think that's what we're seeing here with people leaving these churches to go to these traditions that have their faith grounded in what was handed down to the apostles by Jesus himself. What did Jesus say? What did the apostles do? And that's what we're seeing, is people returning to that, because they don't want this wishy-washy bull crap that changes year by year. They don't want priestesses. They don't want gay Pledge of Allegiance.
Right.
They want it.
And and to be fair, and I don't get into religious debates that much on my show, because there are Protestant churches that don't give into this whole gay thing and everything else. I definitely, that's not the case. Yeah. But there have been a lot of churches and that they base their denomination based on what in the Bible would say what the world wants. They want to appeal to the world. And the whole idea of Christianity was to kind of leave the world, which is of Satan, and follow Christ. But these churches are like, oh, in order to grow, we need to show we're progressive, and we have women priests, and we have homosexuality, and like the Episcopalians. I don't want to offend the Episcopalians, but that just came to mind. So then there comes a point, well, why should I even go to church? They don't really believe in anything except gay rights or something. And I don't have to go to church for that. And I think that is true. Now, the Catholics, though, they've had a lot of issues in their own church, though. I mean, let's just be honest. There's a lot of people that grew up Catholic. They fell away from the faith. It didn't appeal to them. And I think because the Orthodoxy has been it's never been popular in the United States. It's kind of got some traction because people see this as something new. So how do you deal with all the wokeness and Catholicism?
So where the Catholicism that I've experienced is actually really not woke at all. I think it's a geographic concern. Because where you see these woke Catholic churches are like in Chicago and like the North, where people are already really woke. So this is the thing, the California church actually, so Nancy Pelosi went to that diocese in San Francisco, I think. And everybody wanted the priest there to excommunicate her, and he was all for it. But he was told to kind of back down, unfortunately. But it's in the North, and there is an issue with that. However, every single denomination has an issue like that. You're not going to find this perfect denomination where all the people are perfect, because perfection does not exist.
Right. And I've always told people that if you're looking to perfection, you want to go to the church, but the church isn't meant to be perfect. I think Jesus said, I went to a Christian school in elementary, so it's all in my head, that he was like the healer. He hangs around sick people, so not perfect people. And so there's always going to be issues. But it is strange because you have so-called Catholics like Biden who support aborting children in the 9th month. I don't know how you reconcile that.
Well, and what we say is that they're not really Catholic, because that's the thing, is like it's in our catechism that, you know, it outlines things that it's beliefs that you cannot hold at the same time as Catholicism.
Right.
And so even though he's not officially excommunicated that we know of, he's not Catholic because he holds those beliefs. And so that's what you can really always fall back on. And that's why I converted to Catholicism, is because, yes, like obviously the individual people within Catholicism have issues. There's going to be issues everywhere. What you fall back on is what is the doctrine of that denomination. And that is the fruit, that is the heart of the matter.
Yeah, that's interesting you went to Catholicism because you were raised in the South, and the South, I believe you said Texas, but the South has always been very hardcore, and I think you were raised Baptist, very anti-Catholic.
Yeah.
And I know my grandparents, they were anti-Catholic because they had ideas that the nuns would kill their children. It was weird how they just had all these beliefs about it, and they pray to idols and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a very, especially in the South, a very anti-Catholic point of view. And it's interesting, people always bring up the KKK, which is kind of a myth, but in the 20s, the KKK, they weren't so much anti-Black, they were very much anti-Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes, Catholics were actually, like, I think they were illegal in like South Carolina and stuff like that. So it's funny. It is what it is. There's a quote that's by Fulton Sheen, I think, that says, like, nobody actually hates Catholicism. They hate what they think Catholicism is. So I think that's very true.
yeah, I think there's some of that because I did study a little bit about that. And some of that I think was a little bit, because a lot of I came out of a Protestant tradition that believes Catholics aren't even Christians because they don't pray to God, they pray to idols. And I'm like, well, if you look at it, they really don't. This is not. So it's, but I can see, the Catholic Church has had a lot of issues with the priest scandals and all that type of stuff. So.
Yeah, actually, do you know where the unsafest place for children to be now, though, is in public schools?
It probably is.
The Catholic Church is one of the safest places, and actually, interestingly enough, and sadly, the denomination that has the largest problem with pedophilia is actually the Baptist denomination.
Really? Yeah. You know where it's also a big problem, they cover it up quite a bit, is in Judaism and the synagogues. There's a big problem with that too. Jay, reaction, $10. Thank you. She had to work twice as hard. I don't call that privilege. Yeah, I don't, there's no privilege there of the work. Because I don't think when you were in your sport, Alicia, they gave you special benefits because you were white, did they?
No, there was nobody patting me on the back because I was white. So
Just saying, oh, we give you, what sport did you compete in?
I competed in like one of the only white dominated fields of track and field. So pole vault.
Oh, long distance running can become white too, but yeah. Okay. Yeah, pole vaults. Okay. So, did they give you a easier jump if you were white?
Yeah, actually, I got a little trampoline that I got to hop
Oh, that helps. Yes, that helps. All right. The true Reformation was the beginning of liberalism. Yeah, there is some theories about that because of the whole idea of equality. Because the idea of if you have equality spiritually, why don't you have it in other aspects like men and women and the races? So, and Calvin and all that it started the Reformation and the Enlightenment. And it is interesting how it went down that path. And I would say woke people, Alicia, they are actually very religious. They're very much like the Puritans, but they don't believe in God. But they have very much in common with them. They see the evil ones, Old Scratch, the devil, being white supremacist, and they're evangelicals, and they're very intolerant, and they're very cultish behavior. So
Yeah, they have a shared language. Just like Christians have a shared language.
yes,
Use words like sin and evangelize. The woke left has a shared language. They have shared beliefs. They have, it is a religion.
very much so. And I because I was raised with the religion, I can see how they have it. They just kind of perverted it, and they're kind of cult-like. I don't know if you've noticed this. We've even noticed in our lives a lot of people that when they're really woke, they don't even want to hang around people, for example, that voted for Trump. I don't know if you've seen those TikTok videos where women are crying because their best friend of 20 years voted for Trump so they can no longer be friends with her. It's just so stupid, but it's so cultish.
It is. And the ones that are shaving their heads, the ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I wonder how the sex strike is going. Is that still on? Did all these women still are on their sex
I
strike?
highly doubt that some of these women even had to try that hard to go on.
I know.
Like, you're not sacrificing anything if you didn't have it in the first place. I'm sorry. Like,
Yeah. What was it? Was it the Babylon Bee? Was it Rosie O'Donnell? She's on her 13th year of a sex strike or whatever. So
I didn't see that one.
yeah, that was pretty funny. So, oh, Johnny, another point on healthcare in America is we were 100% white Christian. If we were 100% Christian and English speaking, would healthcare single payer be more accepted? Think of Sweden. Would we support our people receiving healthcare? I don't know if it's so much because we were like 90%. We never had that. Do you see us going to like Europe and all Canada, Alicia, with the healthcare?
I think because of my views of Revelation, I do believe that things will like eventually get really, 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 really bad. And yeah, I do believe that eventually we'll get there. But hopefully not in my lifetime. Hopefully not in my children's.
Yeah, interesting. Usually it's like the Baptists really get into Revelation, so that's interesting. Not so much Catholics.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's about it. Alicia, it's been so much fun again with you this week. So, any final thoughts you have?
Not that I could think of. I think we've pretty much covered everything.
Yeah, we had a great time. And how can people follow you and what you do?
Yeah, so I am on Twitter, Alicia Biddle. You can also find me, Daughter of Wolves, on Twitter. I'm on Instagram as well, Alicia Biddle again, or Every Biddle Thing, and I write for Evie under my name. So that's how you can follow me.
All right, guys. Thank you for being here tonight. It's been a lot of fun. 824 people watching. It's great to have you all. And we will talk to you guys later. Bye bye.